The massive Zephyrian command ship, Dominion's Edge, hung in the void like a metallic predator, its hull gleaming with the advanced alloys that had conquered 17 star systems. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge, his 4 arms crossed behind his back as he gazed at the small blue planet rotating slowly on the main display. "Such a primitive world," he muttered to his tactical officer, Commander Yil Shah. "Look at those pathetic orbital constructs they call space stations. Their largest vessel is barely the size of our shuttle bay." Yil Shah nodded, her scaled head bobbing in agreement. "Intelligence reports indicate they have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, Admiral. Their technology appears to be at least 300 years behind our own. This should be the easiest integration we have ever performed." The Zephyrian Empire had perfected the art of peaceful conquest over millennia. They would arrive at a primitive world, demonstrate their overwhelming technological superiority, and offer the inhabitants a simple choice: join the Empire as a protectorate species or face obliteration. In over 800 first contact scenarios, not a single species had chosen destruction. "Prepare the standard integration protocol," HFY commanded. "Full power display, weapons demonstration on their moon, then the usual demands for surrender. Have the translation matrix ready for when their leaders inevitably request negotiations." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this so many times that it had become routine. Another primitive species, another easy victory for the Empire. What none of them noticed was the small metallic object that had appeared behind their ship 3 hours ago. It looked like nothing more than space debris, roughly the size of a cargo container, drifting silently in their wake. The Zephyrian sensors, calibrated to detect massive energy signatures and large vessels, completely ignored it. On Earth, President Sarah Chen sat in the emergency session of the Global Defense Council, her face grim as she studied the reports flooding in from observatories around the world. "The ship appeared exactly 47 minutes ago," reported General Martinez, the head of Earth's Space Command. "It's approximately 15 kilometers long, heavily armed, and maintaining a position just outside our moon's orbit. All attempts at communication have been ignored." Dr. Elizabeth Harper, Earth's leading xenobiologist, leaned forward in her chair. "The design is definitely not human. The hull composition shows materials we have never seen before, and the energy readings are off the charts. If they wanted to attack us, we would already be dead." President Chen nodded slowly. "Any word from the Watchers?" General Martinez shook his head. "Radio silence from all monitoring stations. Whatever this is, we are on our own." The Watchers were humanity's greatest secret, a network of hidden observers that had been placed throughout the galaxy over the past 2 centuries. Only a handful of people knew that humanity's expansion into space had been far more extensive than the general population believed. While the public thought that humans had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, the truth was that Earth had been secretly exploring and mapping the galaxy for over 200 years. The decision had been made early in humanity's space age. Better to appear weak and primitive while quietly gathering intelligence and preparing for the day when they would inevitably encounter hostile alien species. The few colonies and space stations visible to outside observers were deliberately designed to look crude and underdeveloped, while humanity's real infrastructure remained hidden. "Ma'am," interrupted Communications Director Lisa Wong, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien vessel." The main screen flickered to life, showing the imposing figure of Admiral HFY. His reptilian features were arranged in what the translation software identified as a confident smirk. "Primitive inhabitants of the 3rd planet," his voice boomed through the speakers. "I am Admiral HFY of the Zephyrian Empire. You have been selected for integration into our glorious civilization. We offer you a simple choice: submit to our authority and become a protectorate species under our protection, or resist and face complete annihilation. The Admiral paused dramatically, clearly expecting the humans to be overwhelmed by his presence. To demonstrate our power, observe what happens to your moon. President Chen felt her blood turn cold. On the screen, they could see the massive alien ship charging its weapons, energy crackling along its hull like lightning. Dr. Harper grabbed her arm. "Sarah, if they destroy the moon, the tidal effects alone will kill billions of people. We have to surrender." But President Chen was already reaching for a small device on her belt. It looked like an ordinary communication device, but it was actually a quantum transmitter capable of sending instantaneous messages across any distance. "This is Phoenix Authority," she spoke into the device. "Code Crimson. Immediate intervention required." On the Zephyrian ship, Admiral Kexvar was enjoying the moment. Through their sensors, he could see the panic spreading across the human world. Their primitive communication networks were lighting up with terrified chatter, and their few military vessels were scrambling in obvious desperation. "Admiral," Commander Yilshaw reported, "their moon is in optimal firing position. Shall we proceed with the demonstration?" "Fire," Kexavar commanded. The ship's primary weapon discharged with tremendous force, sending a beam of concentrated energy racing toward Earth's moon. The beam was powerful enough to shatter a small planet, and Kexvar expected to see the moon explode in a spectacular display that would terrorize the humans into immediate submission. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam struck an invisible barrier roughly halfway to the moon and simply disappeared. It did not reflect or scatter. It did not create any visible explosion or energy discharge. It just vanished as if it had never existed. "What just happened?" Kexvar demanded, his confident posture faltering. "Unknown, Admiral," Yilshaw replied, her voice tight with confusion. "Our primary weapon discharged normally, but the beam appears to have been completely absorbed by some kind of defensive field." "Impossible! Scan for enemy vessels!" The tactical officer's hands flew over his controls. "No enemy vessels detected, Admiral, but—" He paused, his face turning pale. "Admiral, I am reading massive energy signatures all throughout this system. They were not there before." On the main screen, space itself seemed to shimmer and bend. Then, one by one, ships began appearing out of nowhere. They were not the primitive, clunky vessels the Zephyrians had observed around Earth. These ships were sleek, massive, and clearly designed by a civilization with technology far beyond anything in the Empire's databases. Some were larger than entire Zephyrian battle groups, their hulls gleaming with energy that seemed to bend light around them. Within minutes, the Dominion's edge was surrounded by more than 50 human vessels, each one radiating power signatures that dwarfed the Zephyrian flagship. "This is impossible," Kexvar whispered. "Where did they come from?" The answer came in the form of a new transmission. The screen flickered, and instead of President Chen, they now saw a different human. This one wore a military uniform unlike anything in the Empire's files, and his eyes held the cold confidence of someone who had fought and won countless battles. "Admiral Kexvar," the human said calmly, "I am Fleet Admiral Marcus Cole of the Terran Deep Space Navy. You have just committed an act of aggression against a sovereign world under the protection of the Terran Federation." Kexvar's mouth fell open. "The Terran Federation? But our intelligence reports indicated that this species was primitive." Admiral Cole smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Your intelligence was intentionally limited, Admiral. What you observed were our frontier worlds, designed specifically to appear underdeveloped to discourage unwanted attention. The actual scope of human civilization extends across 47 star systems and includes defensive installations that you clearly never detected." "Impossible!" Kexvar snarled. "The Empire has the most advanced sensor technology in the galaxy." "Clearly not," Cole replied. "Your sensors failed to detect our ships until we chose to decloak. They failed to detect the gravitational field generators that absorbed your weapon discharge. They failed to detect the quantum monitoring stations we placed around your vessel the moment you entered this system. Shall I continue? Commander Yilsha frantically worked her controls. Admiral, I am detecting energy buildups from all the human vessels. They are targeting us. Admiral Cole continued speaking as if he had not been interrupted. Now, Admiral Kexvar, let me offer you a choice. You will power down your weapons, submit to escort by our vessels, and accompany us to a neutral location where we can discuss the future relationship between our civilizations, or you can resist and discover just how primitive you believe us to be. Kexvar looked around his bridge at the terrified faces of his crew. Every tactical display showed the same impossible truth. They were completely outgunned and outmatched by a species they had dismissed as barely spacefaring. How? He whispered. How did we not know? Admiral Cole's expression softened slightly. Because, Admiral, humans learned long ago that the best way to survive in a dangerous galaxy is to let potential enemies underestimate you. While you have been conquering primitive worlds and growing overconfident, we have been watching, learning, and preparing. The tactical officer spoke up again, his voice shaking. Admiral, I am now detecting human installations throughout this entire star system. There are battle stations hidden in the asteroid belt, weapon platforms disguised as comets, and what appears to be an entire fleet base hidden behind their gas giant. How did we miss all of this? Because you were looking for what you expected to see, Cole answered, clearly monitoring their communications. You expected a primitive species with crude technology, so that is exactly what we showed you. Kexvar slumped in his command chair, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. The Zephyrian Empire, for all its pride and power, had just attempted to bully a civilization that could have destroyed them at any moment. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now, Admiral Cole said, you learn what humanity is really like. Power down your weapons, Admiral. We have much to discuss. As the Dominion's edge reluctantly complied with the human demands, Admiral Kexvar could not help but wonder how many other primitive species in the galaxy were actually far more advanced than they appeared. The Empire's entire strategy of conquest was built on the assumption of technological superiority. What if they had been wrong about that from the very beginning? The bridge crew worked in stunned silence as human escort ships took positions around their vessel. Through the viewports, Kexvar could see the human fleet, each ship a testament to the technology and power that Earth had kept hidden for centuries. He had come here expecting an easy victory and another primitive species to add to the Empire's collection. Instead, he had discovered that humanity was not the beginner in this cosmic game. They had been playing it far longer than anyone realized. The conference room aboard the human vessel Defiant was unlike anything Admiral Kexvar had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of a single piece of crystal that somehow displayed star charts, tactical data, and communication feeds simultaneously. The lighting adjusted automatically to provide perfect visibility for both human and Zephyrian eyes, and the air itself felt somehow cleaner and more refreshing than the recycled atmosphere he was used to. Kexvar sat across from Fleet Admiral Cole, acutely aware that he was no longer the one in control. 2 days had passed since his failed attempt to conquer Earth, and every hour had brought new revelations about just how badly the Zephyrian Empire had underestimated humanity. Tell me about the Watchers, Admiral Cole said, sliding a datapad across the table. Kexvar looked at the device and felt his blood turn cold. The screen displayed detailed intelligence reports about Zephyrian military movements, battle plans, and even private conversations between high-ranking officials. Some of the information was less than a week old. How do you have this? He whispered. The Watchers, Cole repeated. Small, nearly invisible surveillance drones that have been monitoring your empire for the past 30 years. They use technology your sensors cannot detect, and they have been reporting everything back to our intelligence services. Commander Yilsha, who had been permitted to accompany her admiral to the meeting, leaned forward. This is impossible. Our counterintelligence divisions would have detected any foreign surveillance. A new voice spoke from the doorway. Actually, they would not have. Kexvar turned to see a human woman entering the room. She was older than Admiral Cole, with gray hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. Her uniform bore insignia that Kexvar did not recognize, but her bearing suggested someone with tremendous authority. "Admiral Kexvar," Cole said. "May I introduce Director Sarah Vance of the Terran Intelligence Agency?" Director Vance took a seat at the table and activated a holographic display that showed the Zephyrian Empire's territory from a perspective that no Zephyrian had ever seen. "Your empire controls 17 star systems," she began, "with a combined population of approximately 43 billion beings across 12 different species. Your military consists of roughly 8,000 vessels of various classes, supported by orbital installations around 47 worlds." Kexvar stared at the display, his heart's pounding. The information was not just accurate, it was more detailed than his own intelligence files. "Your primary weakness," Vance continued, "is your complete dependence on rare mineral resources from the Kepler system. If those supply lines were disrupted, your entire war machine would grind to a halt within 6 months." "How?" Yilsha demanded. "How do you know this?" "Because," Vance replied calmly, "humanity has been preparing for this meeting for over 2 centuries. She touched another control, and the holographic display changed to show a timeline stretching back 300 years. When humans first achieved faster-than-light travel, our leaders made a decision. We would not repeat the mistakes of Earth's history, where technological advancement led to conquest and colonization. Instead, we would explore quietly, learn about our galactic neighbors, and prepare for the day when we would inevitably encounter hostile species. The timeline showed humanity's secret expansion across the galaxy, establishing hidden bases, monitoring stations, and research facilities while maintaining the illusion of being confined to the Sol system. "We discovered your empire's existence 87 years ago," Vance continued. "We watched you conquer the Altarian Republic, the Vegan Confederacy, and the small independent worlds that tried to resist your expansion. We studied your tactics, your technology, and your psychology." Admiral Cole leaned forward. "What Director Vance is not telling you, Admiral, is that we could have stopped your empire's expansion at any time over the past 50 years. We chose not to interfere because we were still learning." Kexvar felt a chill run down his spine. "You allowed billions of beings to be conquered just so you could study us?" "We allowed the natural course of galactic politics to proceed while we gathered intelligence," Vance corrected. "Intervention without understanding would have been reckless. We needed to know not just your capabilities, but your intentions and methods." The holographic display shifted again, showing detailed analyses of Zephyrian battle tactics, weapon systems, and command structures. "Your empire's standard integration protocol," Admiral Cole said, "involves arriving at a primitive world, demonstrating overwhelming force, and offering a choice between submission and destruction. It is effective against genuinely primitive species, but it has one critical flaw." "Which is?" Kexvar asked, though he dreaded the answer. "It assumes that what you can see is all that exists," Vance replied. "Your empire has become so accustomed to technological superiority that you have lost the ability to recognize when you might be facing an equal or superior force." Commander Yilsha spoke up, her voice tight with anger. "If you are so superior, why did you not simply destroy our fleet when we arrived? Why this elaborate deception?" Admiral Cole and Director Vance exchanged glances before Cole answered. Because, Commander, destruction is not humanity's preferred solution to conflict. We believe in the possibility of coexistence, even with former enemies. The holographic display changed once more, showing star charts that Kexvar had never seen before. The galaxy is much larger and more complex than your empire realizes, Vance explained. There are older, more powerful civilizations that have been watching the rise of younger species like yours and mine. Some of them are peaceful, others are not. She highlighted several regions of space that appeared empty on standard star charts. The void architects in the galactic core, for example, consider all biological life to be a contamination that must be cleansed. The machine collective in the outer rim converts entire worlds into computational matrices, consuming every living thing to fuel their calculations. The Shadow Fleet exists in dimensions parallel to ours, emerging only to harvest entire species for purposes we do not yet understand. Kexvar felt his worldview crumbling. Why are you telling us this? Because, Admiral Cole said, your empire's aggressive expansion has attracted their attention. Intelligence reports indicate that the Void Architects have begun mobilizing their forces. They see the Zephyrian Empire as a growing threat that needs to be eliminated. The holographic display showed massive, impossible structures moving through the void of deep space, surrounded by energy signatures that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. They are approximately 18 months away from your core worlds, Vance added. When they arrive, they will not offer you a choice between submission and destruction. They will simply destroy everything. Commander Yilshaw's face had gone pale. What do you want from us? An alliance, Admiral Cole said simply. Humanity has been preparing for this conflict for decades. We have weapons and defenses that can stand against the Void Architects, but we cannot protect the entire galaxy alone. We need partners, not subjects. Kexvar looked at the star charts showing the approaching threat, then at the detailed intelligence files that proved humanity's vast superiority over his own empire. You could have conquered us, he said slowly. You could have destroyed our fleet and occupied our worlds. Why offer us partnership instead? Director Vance smiled for the first time since entering the room. Because, Admiral, that is not who we are. Humanity learned long ago that diversity makes us stronger. Every species has unique perspectives, abilities, and knowledge that can benefit the whole. She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed dozens of different species working together on various projects. The Altarian Republic that your empire conquered? They are still alive, Admiral. Their government in exile has been working with us for 30 years, developing new defensive technologies using their natural telepathic abilities. The Vegan Confederacy's survivors have been helping us establish hidden communication networks throughout the galaxy. Even some of your own people have been cooperating with us. Kexvar's eyes widened. That's impossible. No Zephyrian would betray the Empire. Not betray, Admiral Cole corrected. Evolve. There are members of your own military who have grown tired of endless conquest and have been secretly providing us with intelligence for years. They believe, as we do, that there is a better way for civilizations to interact. The holographic display showed communications logs between human agents and Zephyrian contacts, stretching back over a decade. Admiral Veltar of your 5th Battle Group, Vance said, reading from the display. Commander Thexel of your Intelligence Division. Even some members of your ruling council have been questioning the Empire's aggressive policies. Kexvar slumped in his chair, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he was learning. Everything he had believed about his empire's power and humanity's primitiveness had been wrong. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now, Admiral Cole said, you have a choice to make. You can return to your empire and report that humanity is too dangerous to attack, recommending that your forces withdraw from human space. Or you can help us prepare for the coming war against enemies that threaten all biological life in this galaxy. Director Vance leaned forward. Admiral, your empire has conquered 17 star systems through force. Humanity has been secretly protecting over 200 systems through cooperation and mutual aid. Which approach do you think is more sustainable in the long run? Kexvar looked at his aide, seeing his own confusion and fear reflected in her eyes. Then he looked back at the human leaders who had completely outmaneuvered him without firing a single shot. If I agree to this alliance, he said slowly, what guarantees do I have that humanity will not simply conquer my empire once the external threat is dealt with? Admiral Cole's expression became serious. The same guarantee your empire gave to the species you conquered, Admiral. None at all. The brutal honesty of the statement hung in the air for a moment before Cole continued. The difference is that humanity has already had the opportunity to conquer your empire and chose not to. We have demonstrated our power, our intelligence capabilities, and our strategic superiority. If we wanted to rule your worlds, we would already be doing so. Director Vance activated another holographic display, this one showing detailed plans for defensive installations and joint military exercises. What we are offering, Admiral, is the chance for your empire to survive not just the coming war, but the challenges that will follow. The galaxy is changing, and the old ways of expansion through conquest are becoming obsolete. Kexvar studied the plans, seeing technological innovations and strategic concepts that surpassed anything in the Empire's arsenal. You really believe this alliance can work? He asked. We believe, Admiral Cole said, that survival requires adaptation. Your empire can continue trying to conquer primitive worlds until the Void Architects arrive to destroy everything, or it can join with other civilizations to build something stronger than any single empire could achieve. The Admiral looked once more at the approaching threat displayed on the holographic charts, then at the extensive evidence of humanity's hidden power and benevolent intentions. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kexvar faced a choice that would determine not just his own fate, but the future of every being in the Zephyrian Empire. 6 months after his humbling encounter with humanity, Admiral Kexvar stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, but everything had changed. The ship itself had been upgraded with human technology that made their previous systems look like stone tools. The crew now included human advisors, Altarian telepaths, and engineers from 3 different species working together with an efficiency that would have been unimaginable under the old empire. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Commander Zara Chen, the human officer assigned as his tactical advisor, the Void Architect fleet has entered the outer rim of the Kepler system. Estimated time to the mining colonies is 14 hours. Kexvar nodded, his 4 arms working smoothly over controls that now responded with inhuman precision thanks to the quantum interfaces humanity had shared with their new allies. Status of the combined fleet? All vessels are in position, Commander Yilshaw replied. Her own attitudes had changed dramatically over the past months as she worked alongside species she had once considered inferior. The human dreadnought Invincible reports ready. The Altarian mind-link network is fully operational. The Vegan stealth squadrons have confirmed their positions. Through the viewports, Kexvar could see the largest military formation in galactic history. Over 3,000 ships from dozens of different civilizations, all working together under the unified command structure that humanity had developed over centuries of secret cooperation. The irony was not lost on him. The Zephyrian Empire, which had spent centuries conquering other species, was now part of an alliance that included many of those same species. The difference was that this time, they had chosen to join rather than being forced to submit. Incoming transmission from Fleet Admiral Cole, reported the communications officer. The main screen activated, showing the command bridge of the Invincible. Admiral Cole stood at the center of a circular command platform, surrounded by holographic displays showing the tactical situation from every possible angle. "Admiral Kexvar," Cole said, "are your forces ready?" "Ready, Admiral. The 3rd Battle Group stands prepared to execute Operation Prometheus on your command." Over the months of preparation, Kexvar had learned that humans named their military operations after figures from their mythology. Prometheus, they had explained, was the titan who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. It seemed fitting for an operation designed to steal victory from beings who considered themselves godlike. Excellent. Remember, this is not about destruction. This is about communication. That had been the most shocking revelation of all. Humanity believed that even the Void Architects, ancient and hostile as they were, might be reasoned with if approached correctly. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Chen said quietly, "the Architect fleet is coming into sensor range now." The main display shifted to show the enemy force, and even after months of preparation, Kexvar felt his blood chill. The Void Architect ships were not built so much as grown, massive crystalline structures that seemed to bend space around them. Each one was the size of a small moon, crackling with energy that registered on sensors as something beyond conventional physics. 47 capital ships, Yilsha reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. Combined mass equivalent to approximately 3,000 of our largest vessels. And yet, Admiral Cole's voice came through the communicator. "They are not invincible. Intelligence reports indicate they have never faced organized resistance from a unified galactic alliance." The Void Architects had been conquering worlds for millions of years, but they had always faced individual species fighting alone and afraid. This was something entirely different. "All ships," Admiral Cole broadcasted to the combined fleet, "initiate first phase." Across the vast formation, ships from dozens of different species activated systems that had never been used together before. Human quantum shields merged with Altarian psionic barriers. Vegan stealth technology combined with Zephyrian power cores. Technologies that had been developed in isolation for centuries suddenly worked together as if they had been designed as a single system. "By the ancestors," Yilsha whispered, watching the sensor displays. "The energy output is incredible." The combined fleet was now generating power levels that exceeded anything in the known galaxy. But instead of using that power for weapons, they were using it for something far more ambitious. "Initiating the translation protocol," Admiral Cole announced. This had been humanity's most audacious plan. Rather than simply fighting the Void Architects, they intended to communicate with them using a combination of mathematics, physics, and universal constants that any advanced civilization should be able to understand. The fleet began broadcasting a complex mathematical sequence that described the fundamental structure of reality itself. It was followed by detailed star charts showing every inhabited world in the galaxy, population figures, and technological development levels. Then came the message itself, encoded in pure mathematics. "We are not your enemy. We seek understanding." For long moments, nothing happened. The Void Architect fleet continued its approach, their crystalline ships crackling with malevolent energy. Then, suddenly, they stopped. "Admiral," the communications officer reported, his voice tight with excitement, "we are receiving a response." The response came not as words or images, but as pure information downloaded directly into their computers. It was a mathematical proof so complex and elegant that human computers needed several minutes just to process it. When the translation was complete, the message was simple. "Prove your worth." Admiral Cole's voice came through the fleet communication system. "All ships, prepare for the demonstration." This had been the second part of humanity's plan. The Void Architects had demanded proof of worthiness, so they would be shown something that no individual species could have achieved alone. Across the combined fleet, every ship activated its gravitational manipulation systems simultaneously. The result was the controlled creation of a miniature star, born from the gravitational compression of space debris and sustained by the coordinated effort of 3,000 vessels. The new star burned bright in the darkness between worlds, a testament to what could be achieved through cooperation rather than conquest. The response from the Void Architects was immediate. Their ships began to transform, crystalline structures reshaping themselves into configurations that radiated curiosity rather than hostility. The next message that came through was more complex, a detailed inquiry about how the various species had learned to work together so effectively. "Now we tell them the truth," Admiral Cole said. What followed was the most important communication in galactic history. The combined fleet transmitted the complete story of humanity's secret expansion, their decision to unite rather than conquer, and the gradual building of alliances based on mutual respect rather than force. They showed the Void Architects the difference between the old galactic order, where species fought each other in isolation, and the new paradigm where diverse civilizations could achieve things that none could accomplish alone. The response was unlike anything they had expected. The Void Architect fleet began to change again, their ships reconfiguring into peaceful formations. Then came a flood of information that would revolutionize galactic civilization. The Void Architects, it turned out, were not conquerors. They were gardeners. For millions of years, they had been watching younger species develop, waiting for signs that biological civilizations could move beyond conquest and warfare to achieve true cooperation. Every species they had destroyed had been judged incapable of transcending their aggressive instincts. "They have been testing us," Admiral Cole announced to the fleet. "Every conflict in galactic history has been observed and evaluated. They have been waiting for proof that biological life could evolve beyond its primitive origins." The Void Architects transmitted detailed records of every species they had encountered over the eons. Some had been destroyed for their irredeemable aggression. Others had been quietly guided toward enlightenment. A few had been invited to join the greater galactic community that existed beyond the perception of younger species. "Admiral Kexvar," Admiral Cole said, "your Empire's conquest of other species was noted by the Architects. It was one of the factors that led them to begin mobilizing their fleet. They saw the Zephyrian expansion as evidence that biological life in this sector was still too primitive to survive." Kexvar felt a chill of realization. "Our aggression nearly doomed our entire region of space." "Yes," Cole confirmed. "But your willingness to join this alliance and work with former enemies has demonstrated that your species is capable of growth. That willingness, multiplied across dozens of civilizations, has convinced the Architects that we may be ready for the next stage of galactic evolution." The Void Architect fleet began to withdraw, but not before transmitting one final message. It was an invitation to join a galactic confederation that spanned multiple dimensions and included civilizations so advanced that their technology was indistinguishable from magic. "The choice is yours," the message concluded. "Continue to grow together or remain isolated in your small corner of space. We will be watching." As the crystalline ships disappeared into dimensional rifts that closed behind them, the combined fleet found itself alone in space, forever changed by the encounter. Admiral Kexavar looked around his bridge at the faces of beings from multiple species, all working together with a harmony that would have been impossible under the old empire. "Admiral Cole," he said into the communicator, "what happens now?" "Now," Cole replied, "we build something better than any empire. We build a civilization based on the idea that diversity is strength, that cooperation is superior to conquest, and that the greatest challenges require the combined efforts of all thinking beings." On the main display, the artificial star they had created continued to burn, a symbol of what could be achieved when species chose to work together rather than fight each other. HFY thought about the long journey that had brought him to this moment. 6 months ago, he had been a conquering admiral of a mighty empire, confident in his species' superiority. Today, he was part of something larger and more meaningful than any empire could ever be. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but they would face those mysteries together, as partners rather than as conquerors and conquered. And somewhere in the depths of space, ancient watchers noted the success of their latest test and began preparing the young alliance for challenges that would make the Void Architects seem simple by comparison. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their military power. It was their ability to turn enemies into allies and to find strength in the diversity that others saw as weakness. For Admiral HFY and the trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds, the real adventure was just beginning.